peated whiskey. You know, for some people, it's the absolute pinnacle of flavor. Complex, soulful, just incredible. For others, well, it's a taste they have zero interest in acquiring. It is without a doubt the most divisive spirit in the world. So let's pour a dram and really get into the mystery behind all that smoke.
Yeah, I know. For so many people, this is where the journey with peated whiskey begins and ends. That first sip can be a real shock to the system, right? It's a rush of flavors that can feel way more medicinal than delicious. It's smoky, it's tarry, and yep, it can definitely smell a whole lot like iodine.
And that's the central mystery, isn't it? How does a drink that some people think tastes like a bonfire in a bog become one of the most loved, most sought-after whiskeys on the entire planet? The answer is this amazing journey through geology, chemistry, and our own weird human desire to find beauty in something so intense.
To solve this paradox, we have to start at the very beginning, with the peat itself. I mean, what even is this stuff that creates such a powerful, and for a lot of people, such a strange flavor?
Okay, first things first, let's be clear, peat is not just dirt. It's basically ancient organic fuel. Just imagine, thousands of years of plants, we're talking spongy moss, fragrant heather, even seaweed from the coast, all slowly breaking down in this waterlogged, oxygen-starved environment. It's literally a slice of a landscape's history compressed.
And the timescale we're talking about here is just immense. These huge peat bogs, especially the ones in Scotland, are ancient landscapes. The peat that's being used today is made of plants that grew thousands of years before anyone even thought about building a distillery.
So when you taste a peated whiskey, you're tasting the very essence of a specific place, preserved for millennia. That's why people say it's the DNA of the spirit. It connects that dram in your glass directly to the land where it was born.
Okay, so we have this ancient DNA, but how in the world does it get from a bog into the bottle? Well, it's a process that basically turns earth into spirit. It's the science of smoke.
Here's the key step. After the barley has soaked and started to sprout, it has to be dried out in a big oven called a kiln. Now for peated whiskey, they throw blocks of dried peat onto the fire. As that peat smolders, it releases this incredibly aromatic smoke. They call it peat reek, which gets absorbed by the damp barley, locking in all those smoky flavors for good. But, you know, smoky is kind of subjective, right? So how did distillers actually measure it? That is where ppm comes in. It stands for phenol parts per million, and it's a way to measure the concentration of those smoky, peaty compounds in the barley itself. But simply, a higher ppm means you're starting with a much smokier raw ingredient.
And this gives you a great sense of the scale. A typical Speyside malt barely even registers. We're talking 1 or 2 ppm. But then you travel to the island of Islay, and things get serious. Laphroaig is sitting around 40 ppm. The really heavy hitters go past 50. And then there's Octomore. It can top 80, 100, sometimes even 200 ppm. It's a true nuclear-grade smoke bomb for people who really chase that intense experience.
But, and this is a huge but, that ppm number refers to the barley, not the final spirit in your glass. The distillation process is so intense that up to half of those smoky compounds can actually get lost along the way. So, ppm is a great guide, but it definitely does not tell you the whole story about the final taste.
In fact, you could argue that ppm is only half the story. An even more important factor is where that peat actually comes from. This is all about terroir.
And believe me, the difference is like night and day. On the island of Islay, the peat bogs are right on the coast. They're full of decomposed seaweed and bog myrtle, and they're constantly getting battered by salty sea air. This is what creates those classic Islay notes: medicinal, iodine, tar, and brine. But if you head to the mainland Highlands, the peat is made up of more wood and heather from forests inland. That gives you a completely different profile, more aromatic, like a beautiful, fragrant campfire.
I mean, just look at this. The distilleries on Islay are literally right on the water. The sea is washing up against their walls. That maritime influence isn't just some romantic marketing idea, it is physically embedded in the peat. And that means it's in the spirit. That iodine character comes directly from this seaweed-rich environment.
And Scotland isn't the only country in the game. The Japanese have a really fascinating relationship with peat. For a long time, they were actually importing peat from Scotland, but now they're exploring their own local peat and finding totally unique characteristics. But what's really different is their philosophy. They often use peat not as the main event, but more like a structural, savory element, almost like using umami in food,
to create a whiskey with just incredible clarity and aroma.
So, after all this, are you curious? Maybe feeling a little brave? If you want to explore this world for yourself, you don't have to just jump straight into the deep end. There is absolutely a way to ease into it. Let's call this the Peat Ladder Challenge. You can start off gently with a Japanese whiskey that has just a whisper of clean, foresty smoke. Then, you can move to the Highlands for that classic campfire character. When you feel ready, take the trip to Islay for the full, iconic, medicinal punch. And finally, if you dare, you can face the final boss, an Octomore, to really experience what a super heavily peated whiskey tastes like.
But the peat journey doesn't just stop when the whiskey is bottled. It continues to evolve for years and years in the cask, and its very future, well, that's a story in itself.
One of the most magical things about peated whiskey is how it transforms with age. Fresh off the still, that peated spirit is aggressive, it's pungent. But give it 10 years in an oak cask, and that raw smoke starts to mellow out, transforming into these complex notes of leather and tobacco. After 20 years or more, that bonfire has faded into the background, becoming this beautifully integrated, soft, complex layer of old leather and oily richness in a truly mature, elegant whiskey.
But there is a serious problem looming over this entire world. Peat is not a renewable resource, not on a human timescale anyway. It takes about 1,000 years to form just a meter of it. Some of the most historic peat bogs are getting harder to access, and finding new sources with the exact same flavor profile is a massive challenge. The very thing that makes these whiskeys so unique and special is facing a pretty uncertain future.
And all of this leads to a fascinating idea, the philosophy of why we even love these challenging flavors in the first place. It's a concept known as destructive aesthetics. It's the appreciation of things that are intense, that are difficult, that aren't immediately pleasant. Think about bitter coffee, or a really pungent cheese, or fiery chili. So perhaps learning to appreciate the complex, challenging taste of peat is about more than just whiskey. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we find beautiful and finding pleasure in the profound. It might just be the ultimate sign of a truly adventurous palate. What do you think?